Michael Gerard Mike Tyson was born on June 30, 1966, in the tough neighborhoods of Brooklyn, New York, the first child of mixed-race parents in an economically shaken household. From early on, life seemed stacked against him. His parents separated, and Tyson, drawn into street life, spent much of his youth in reform schools. But what salvaged him and would ultimately define his destiny was boxing. As a 13-year-old, coaches spotted his raw power and ferocious spirit, eventually placing him under the mentorship of the legendary Cus D'Amato, whose Catskill gym became the boys' sanctuary. Under D'Amato's guidance, his legal guardian, philosophical mentor, and surrogate father, Tyson learned not just how to punch, but how to cultivate discipline. D'Amato, a master of the peekaboo style, taught Tyson how to guard, bob, weave, and slaughter the gap with speed unseen in heavyweight ranks. At 15, Tyson stunned the boxing world by knocking out Joe Cortez in just 8 seconds in the Junior Olympics heavyweight final, cementing his status as a prodigy with extraordinary power. He struck gold again in 1982 at the National Golden Gloves, then turned professional in March 1985 at age 18, dispatching Hector Mercedes with a first-round knockout in Albany, New York. By the close of 1985, Tyson had amassed an astonishing 1-3-0 record, all wins by knockout, and he did it at a punishing pace, even fighting twice within 9 days to beat Conroy Nelson, breaking his nose with a left hook and ending the fight in short order. His frequency in the ring, ferocity, and aura combined to earn him the fearsome nicknames Kid Dynamite and Iron Mike. Then came a solemn blow that would haunt his champion's arc. On November 4, 1985, Cus D'Amato died of pneumonia. Tyson was left leaderless, emotionally unmoored, yet he pressed forward under Kevin Rooney. Soon Tyson broke Floyd Patterson's record and, on November 22, 1986, at just 20 years old, knocked out Trevor Berbick in 2 rounds to win the World Boxing Council WBC heavyweight title, becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in history. The momentum only swelled. He defended the belt valiantly. In March 1987, he outpointed James Bone Crusher Smith to seize the WBA crown. By August 1, 1987, he defeated Tony Tucker to complete the unification of WBC, WBA, and IBF belts, making him the undisputed heavyweight champion and the only boxer to hold all 3 major titles simultaneously at that time. His dominance continued through 1988. Tyson dismantled former champion Larry Holmes with a 4th-round KO on January 22, then demolished Michael Spinks in just 91 seconds on June 27, 1988, a fight that signaled his kingmaker status in the sport and secured another Ring Magazine Fighter of the Year award. Into 1989 and early 1990, Tyson kept a streak of first-round knockouts, including over Frank Bruno and Carl Williams, reinforcing just how terrifying he was inside the ring. But on February 11, 1990, the unthinkable happened. In Tokyo, underdog James "Buster" Douglas scored one of the greatest upsets in sporting history, knocking Tyson out in the 10th round and ending his reign as undisputed champion. Still just 23 years old, Tyson struggled to regain his form, but he did notch a few wins later that year over Henry Tillman and Alex Stewart, though neither bout dimmed the shock of his Douglas defeat. Then, legal troubles derailed his career. In 1992, Tyson was convicted of rape and sentenced to 6 years in prison. He would serve about 3 before his release in March 1995. When Mike Tyson walked out of the Indiana Youth Center in 1995, he was 28 years old, heavier, battle-scarred by the justice system, and burdened with the tarnished aura of a once invincible champion. Yet the public, fascinated by both his myth and mayhem, still crowded around him. Don King, the promoter who had once orchestrated Tyson's rise to megastardom, stepped in again to manage his comeback, though the trust between them was fractured and laced with future lawsuits. Tyson's return to the ring was aggressive and swift. In August 1995, he knocked out Peter McNeely in just 89 seconds, a circus of a fight more famous for the build-up and post-fight brawl than the competition itself. He followed that up with another early knockout over Buster Mathis Jr. In December, the boxing world, while skeptical of Tyson's long-term form, was eager to see him clash with the new titans of the heavyweight class. In March 1996, Tyson captured the WBC title by defeating Frank Bruno in a brutal 3rd-round TKO, reclaiming a piece of his former glory. He added the WBA belt in September after an explosive first-round destruction of Bruce Seldon. With 2 world titles around his waist, Iron Mike looked ready to finish what he had once started, but the illusion of dominance would not last. The shadows of his past, his emotional instability, and perhaps the loss of Cus D'Amato's moral compass had begun to erode the machine. All roads led to one of the most anticipated fights in modern history, Tyson vs. Evander Holyfield. Originally scheduled years prior but postponed due to Tyson's incarceration, the clash finally happened on November 9, 1996. Many pundits expected Tyson to steamroll Holyfield, who was thought to be past his prime. Instead, Holyfield fought with tactical brilliance and broke Tyson down, eventually forcing a stoppage in the 11th round. It was Tyson's second legitimate defeat and it hurt deeply. The rematch came on June 28, 1997, and would go down as one of the most infamous moments in sports history. As frustration mounted during the bout, Tyson shocked the world when he bit off a piece of Holyfield's right ear during a clinch in the third round. Moments later, he bit the other ear. Chaos erupted. Referee Mills Lane disqualified Tyson, who was later fined $3 million and had his boxing license temporarily revoked by the Nevada State Athletic Commission. The bite fight transcended sport and turned Tyson into a tragic anti-hero, part villain, part broken man, part misunderstood force of nature. Despite the public fallout, Tyson returned once more, slowly, sometimes triumphantly, sometimes tragically. He beat Francois Botha in 1999 with a fifth-round KO after nearly losing the early rounds, but by 2000, the signs of decline were unmistakable. He fought journeymen like Lou Savarese and Orlin Norris, sometimes winning, sometimes muddled in controversy, often looking like a ghost of his former self. In 2002, he landed one last shot at glory, a title fight against Lennox Lewis, then reigning heavyweight king and Olympic gold medalist. The build-up was chaotic. Tyson infamously brawled with Lewis at a press conference, cursed out the media, and exhibited signs of mental instability. When the bell rang, it was clear Tyson was no longer elite. Lewis dominated from the start, breaking Tyson down methodically and finishing him in the 8th round with a thunderous right hand. After the Lewis loss, Tyson's career became a string of anticlimaxes. He fought Clifford Etienne in 2003, winning via a 49-second KO, but in 2004 and 2005, he lost badly to Danny Williams and Kevin McBride, fights that revealed how far he had fallen. Against McBride, Tyson quit on his stool, his body and spirit broken. It was the final act of his professional career. "I don't have the guts to be in this sport anymore," he confessed afterward. Yet that wasn't the end of Mike Tyson, it was simply the end of the fighter. What followed was perhaps the most unlikely transformation in modern celebrity culture. In the years after his retirement, Tyson battled depression, addiction, financial ruin, at one point declaring bankruptcy with debts over $23 million, and personal loss. His public image hit rock bottom, but beneath the chaos, something deeper began to shift. In the years following his final professional bout, Mike Tyson underwent a personal metamorphosis that no one could have predicted. The world had known him as the ferocious knockout artist, the unpredictable press conference brawler, the convicted felon. But slowly, a new Tyson emerged, raw, reflective, and surprisingly self-aware. It began with small gestures, more honest interviews, a newfound vulnerability, and an open acknowledgement of his demons. "I'm on the verge of dying, because I'm a vicious alcoholic," he said in a startling 2005 press conference, not to announce a fight, but to confront himself in front of the world. The boxing world moved on without him, but Tyson refused to vanish. In 2008, he appeared in the poignant documentary Tyson, directed by James Toback, which offered an unprecedented window into his psyche. The film was less about boxing and more about the bruises beneath the surface, the broken boy who never healed. Tyson, speaking directly to camera, wept as he discussed D'Amato, roared when describing betrayal, and trembled when confessing guilt. It was a searing portrait that startled critics and audiences alike and helped reframe him not just as a fighter, but as a complex, haunted man seeking redemption. But perhaps the most unexpected chapter began in 2009, when Tyson made a cameo appearance as himself in the hit comedy The Hangover. Playing a comically violent version of his past self, he knocked out Zach Galifianakis to the beat of Phil Collins' In the Air Tonight and instantly became a cult character for a new generation. It wasn't just funny, it was symbolic. The world was laughing with Tyson now, not at him. He reprised the role in The Hangover Part 2, cementing his strange, successful leap from menacing icon to lovable oddball. In 2012, Tyson published his autobiography, Undisputed Truth, co-written with Larry Sloman. It was candid, ugly, sometimes hilarious, and deeply human. He wrote about his rise, his violent urges, his drug binges, the death of his 4-year-old daughter Exodus in 2009, a tragedy that nearly broke him. He admitted to fighting while high on cocaine, to cheating on his wives, to craving love while sabotaging anyone who tried to give it. "I'm a bad guy sometimes," he wrote, "but I'm trying to be better." The book became a bestseller and led to a successful one-man stage show of the same name, directed by Spike Lee and performed on Broadway. Financially, Tyson began to rebuild. He launched Iron Mike Productions, a short-lived boxing promotion company. He became a podcast host, speaker, and actor. He also became a vocal supporter of psychedelic therapy, publicly discussing how substances like psilocybin and toad venom, 5-MeO-DMT, helped him confront his ego and trauma. "It killed the monster," he told GQ in 2020. "And I loved the monster, but the monster had to die." In one of the most surreal career moves of all, Tyson returned to the ring in 2020, 15 years after his last professional bout, for an 8-round exhibition against fellow legend Roy Jones Jr. The bout, sanctioned by the California State Athletic Commission and broadcast via pay-per-view and Triller, was watched by millions. Though both men were past their prime, Tyson looked impressively sharp and energized. The match ended in a draw, but the bigger story was Tyson's apparent serenity. "I'm good with who I am now," he said afterward. "I'm not trying to hurt people anymore. I just want to be happy." What had once been tabloid fodder became a tale of reinvention. Tyson, who once terrified interviewers, now spoke about meditation, raising pigeons, and loving his family. He talked about being a vegan, about staying off alcohol and drugs, about learning how to be vulnerable in front of his children. "The best fight I ever had," he said in 2021, "was learning how to live with myself." Even in retirement, Tyson remained wildly influential. In 2021, his cannabis business, Tyson 2.0, began booming. He became a vocal advocate for legalization and built a successful brand around marijuana products, edibles, flowers, and even ear-shaped gummies, referencing the Holyfield incident. A man once feared for his aggression now preached peace, spirituality, and second chances. By the mid-2020s, Mike Tyson had fully morphed into something few people could have predicted back in the 1980s, a cultural elder statesman of sorts, both meme and mentor, eccentric and wise, a man whose legend outgrew the ring. Younger fans, who never watched him fight live, now discovered him through viral podcast clips, cameos, and deeply philosophical soundbites. They heard a man who once embodied rage now speak about fear, humility, and forgiveness with disarming honesty. His podcast, Hot Boxin' with Mike Tyson, became a sleeper hit not for its production quality or slickness, but for the way Tyson disarmed guests with unexpected sincerity. Whether he was interviewing athletes, rappers, or spiritual leaders, Tyson often stole the spotlight not with boasts but with reflections. "My ego tells me I'm somebody," he told Eminem in a now famous episode. "But when I look in the mirror, I realize I'm just this scared little boy trying to be tough." The podcast became a space where the audience came not to hear Iron Mike, the beast of the 80s, but Mike, the man who had been through hell and somehow came back tender. Despite this apparent peace, Tyson never sanitized his legacy. He acknowledged that his past, particularly his 1992 rape conviction, was a permanent stain. He denied the crime, but he didn't try to erase the consequences. "I deserve to be in prison," he often said, "not for that, but for a lot of things. I was out of control." This moral ambiguity, his refusal to rewrite history while still striving for a better self, was part of what made him so compelling. Unlike many former celebrities who drifted into cliché, Tyson stayed raw, unpredictable, unvarnished. He maintained friendships with people from all walks of life, boxing icons, Hollywood actors, comedians, spiritual teachers. But one of the most surprising turns came in 2022, when Evander Holyfield and Tyson, once bitter rivals, launched a joint business venture producing cannabis edibles. Yes, including holy ears, gummy candies shaped like ears, a winking nod to their infamous 1997 fight. "It's all love now," Tyson said at the launch event. "We've forgiven each other. That's what life is about." Through it all, Tyson's body continued to carry the toll of decades in the ring. He battled chronic pain, mental fatigue, and the weight of old injuries. At times, rumors swirled about his health. Videos of him walking with a cane or slurring his speech sparked concern. But he kept showing up, even when it was hard. "I'm at peace with death," he said on multiple occasions. "I don't fear it anymore. I've lived a full life. I did bad things, I did good things. I'm still trying." In 2024, Tyson was once again in the headlines, but this time not for a fight, or a feud, or even a film. It was announced that he would take part in a high-profile exhibition match against YouTuber-turned-boxer Jake Paul, scheduled for late 2024. Critics called it a stunt. Fans were divided. But Tyson, as always, didn't seem to care what others thought. "It's not about who wins," he said in an interview. "It's about showing people that you can still evolve, still fight, even when the war inside you is over." The fight was later postponed due to health concerns. Tyson suffered an ulcer flare-up during a flight, but the anticipation alone reminded the world that his name still carried unmatched gravity. The Mike Tyson of today is a tapestry of contradictions, a man who bit an opponent's ear off and now meditates daily, a former felon who's also a doting father, a symbol of brutality who now speaks of love and surrender. He is both cautionary tale and redemption arc, an enduring reminder that the path to peace is rarely linear and often paved with chaos, humility, and grace. Through all the decades of public scrutiny, Tyson never fully shed the wildness inside him, but he learned to live with it. "I'm not afraid of being crazy anymore," he told Men's Health in 2024. "I've made peace with the monster. I just keep him on a leash now." What sets Mike Tyson apart in the annals of sports history is not just what he did in the ring, but who he became after leaving it. His legend was never solely built on knockouts, it was forged in fire, regret, contradiction, and ultimately, survival. Tyson never pretended to be a role model in the traditional sense. He didn't apologize with press releases or scrub his image for PR purposes. He grew in front of us, violently, publicly, painfully, and that is precisely why his story resonates across generations. From the terrifying speed and savagery of his early fights to the quiet tears on stage during his Broadway show, Tyson's journey has been a study in extremes. He lived as a champion and a convict, as a global icon and a bankrupt recluse. And yet, through it all, he kept evolving, sometimes sideways, sometimes in circles, but always moving. That capacity for change, for contradiction, is rare. Tyson's biography doesn't read like a boxing record, it reads like a novel. Despite being largely retired from the ring, he remained active in shaping combat sports culture. Young fighters still idolized him. In gyms from Brooklyn to Bangkok, his name remained gospel. His influence could be felt in the explosive style of fighters like Gervonta Davis, the psychological warfare of Deontay Wilder, and the quiet ferocity of smaller champions who studied his footwork, his slips, his signature peekaboo posture. He wasn't just a fighter, he was a blueprint. As for his personal life, Tyson found a semblance of peace in simplicity. He married his third wife, Lakia Kiki Spicer, in 2009, and together they raised 2 children. He spoke often about his regrets as a father to his older kids and tried to be more present this time around. "I was too damaged to be a good dad before," he admitted in 2021. "Now, I just want them to know I'm here." He also embraced the mundane. He fed pigeons on his rooftop, something he'd done since childhood. He tended to his cannabis crops. He practiced yoga. He wrote poetry. He continued therapy. And despite the occasional public relapse into his old volatility and angry exchange at an airport, a bizarre online rant, he always circled back to his center. In many ways, Mike Tyson became a mirror for modern masculinity. The man who once symbolized brute force now talked about emotions, about being vulnerable, about loving your children even when you don't love yourself. He stood as a reminder that strength isn't always loud, and redemption doesn't always look clean. In 2025, Tyson remained a living paradox, still occasionally explosive, still funny in his weirdly charming way, still magnetic to cameras and microphones, but he had clearly found something close to what he'd been chasing all along. Not just peace, but meaning. Not just control, but presence. "You can lose everything," he said on a podcast in early 2025, "but if you don't lose yourself, you can always build it again." That's what Mike Tyson did. He built again. From the ashes of his reputation, from the ruins of his fortune, from the trauma of a stolen childhood and the demons of addiction, Mike Tyson became more than a boxer. He became a man, flawed, fascinating, still fighting, but finally fighting for the right things.